In a small town in Montana, where the rolling plains meet the towering Rocky Mountains, lived a boy named Ethan Miller. At just 13, he wasn't the tallest or the strongest among his friends. But his heart held a kind of courage that seemed far older than his years. Ethan lived with his mother, a schoolteacher, and his younger sister, Lily, in a cozy wooden house at the town's edge. His father had passed away when Ethan was only 7, leaving behind memories of gentle advice and quiet lessons about facing life without fear. Ethan learned early on that bravery wasn't about muscles or size. It was about standing up for what's right, even when you're standing alone. School wasn't always a walk in the park for Ethan. Some kids would tease him for his hand-me-down jackets or his quiet voice, but he never let their words get to him. Instead, he found his own kind of courage in the small, everyday moments. He'd help his elderly neighbor carry in groceries, never hesitating to take the heaviest bags. Once he rescued a tiny, stranded kitten from the river, its fur matted and cold. He'd even speak up when he saw someone being bullied, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. To Ethan, these small acts of kindness felt just as heroic as fighting dragons in a storybook. They were his way of making the world a little bit better, one small choice at a time. He believed that true strength came from within, from the compassion you show to others. One crisp autumn evening, a sense of unease settled over the town. A forest fire had broken out near the edge of the mountains, and a strong, unpredictable wind was threatening to push the flames dangerously close to their homes. Panic began to spread like wildfire itself. Smoke filled the sky, turning the sunset a hazy, ominous orange, and the distant wail of sirens cut through the quiet evening air. People started to gather their belongings, their faces etched with worry. But in the midst of the chaos, Ethan's thoughts went straight to the animals. He knew his neighbors' horses, cows, and pets were still in their barns and pastures, terrified and trapped. Without a second thought, he sprang into action. He grabbed a sturdy rope from the garage, a powerful flashlight, and a small bag with a water bottle and some old rags. With his heart pounding, not from fear but from a surge of adrenaline, he ran toward the outskirts of the fire, toward the danger. Flames were already licking at the dry grass, and the heat was so intense it felt like standing in front of an open furnace. But Ethan moved with a calm focus that defied his age. He called out to the frightened horses, his voice a soothing anchor in the noisy chaos. He guided bewildered cows through smoky fields and even found a lost dog whimpering and hiding under a porch. He worked with a quiet determination, sometimes crawling under hanging, burning branches or sprinting through narrow paths to escape the worst of the fire. His courage was contagious. Soon, seeing the young boy's bravery, other neighbors joined in, forming a human chain of rescue. They worked together, their shared purpose overriding their fear. By nightfall, through their combined efforts, the fire was contained, and miraculously, every single animal was safe. The town, which had been on the verge of disaster, was now buzzing with relief and gratitude. They celebrated Ethan not as a boy, but as a true hero. His selfless act had reminded everyone that courage can come in the smallest of packages, and that one person's bravery can inspire a whole community. That night, as Ethan walked home, exhausted and covered in soot, a quiet sense of pride settled over him. It wasn't for the praise or the recognition, but for the simple, powerful feeling of knowing he had done what was right. He had listened to his heart, and it had led him to help those who couldn't help themselves. This experience became a defining moment in his life. Years later, Ethan grew into a strong, capable young man who still carried that same fearless spirit within him. It was no surprise to anyone in his hometown when he decided to become a firefighter. He dedicated his life to protecting others, his actions always inspired by the memory of that first fire back home. He faced towering infernos and daunting challenges, but in his heart, he always remembered where his journey truly began. He knew that his bravery had unstarted with his firefighter uniform or the blare of a fire truck siren. It had begun long before that, in the quiet, everyday choices of a young boy who refused to be afraid of doing the right thing. In that small town in Montana, nestled between the plains and the mountains, courage had a name, and that name was Ethan Miller. His story became a local legend, a reminder that the biggest heroes are often the ones with the biggest hearts. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more inspiring content. We'll see you in the next video.